Alright, so this is a video mainly talking about Sleep Token and my little pet theory about the band and the themes that they use in their music. So let me go ahead and start off with Sleep Token is a musical group that has taken the world by storm this past year. Most people have discovered their latest album, Take Me Back to Eden, with metal veterans and newcomers loving their sound. Longtime fans are also aware of a hidden lore in their music, primarily through Vessel's relationship, the lead singer, with an entity called Sleep. Now, with this context of this relationship, the sultry tunes and Vessel's voice moving from gentle to frenzy to basically on the verge of tears throughout their discography, moves from the real sad boy hours that usually most people, grab onto and immediately love, to something a lot deeper and I'd argue pretty fucking visceral. I'm far from the first person to point out the esoteric imagery in their lyrics, music videos, and merchandise, but I'd still like to at least put this idea out there. So, to me, Sleep Token's music is the band's and Vessel's journey through self-acceptance and integration. While I do believe it is very personal to Vessel, I think it goes a little bit further than just his own process of integration. So, to explain a little bit of that, it's because it's going to take a very long time, I might as well start off with some of my basic ideas. So, art, as anyone could tell you, is something that is highly personal and a window into how that individual perceives the world. It has also been a way for artists to explore themselves, and is even a tool in therapy. Being able to take images and symbols from the mind and bring them into the conscious realm is a wonderful way for people to explore or rediscover aspects of themselves. This process brings me to Jungian psychology. So please forgive me, this is about to get very heavy in psychological terms and also some spiritual terms, so excuse me if I start sounding like Gwyneth Paltrow here. My personal theory, my pet theory, my favorite idea, and I will die on this hill with this idea that this is basically the concept of it, is that the discography is Vessel's process through individualization and self-actualization, which is a key part of Jungian psychology, to be able to self-actualize and discover these aspects of yourself and integrate into yourself, so that way you become a much more functioning person. A major step in this process, of course, is learning to analyze unconscious aspects of oneself and how they impact you and your relationships. Many people familiar with psychology, like Tool fans, know about the shadow, all the hidden and unwanted aspects of oneself. Even when buried deep within the psyche, its presence can still be felt, whether it is the chide remark of how one dresses, despite that individual dressing solely to impress other people, or someone snapping at their nearest loved one, when in reality, they were actually pissed off at a coworker, a supervisor, or whoever. But that's the one that everyone kind of knows about once you start kind of diving into this. Once you start kind of diving into Jungian psychology, the ideas of the self and the persona and all that stuff. There's a deeper aspect, though, because there's layers to this. So, there is the anima and animus. The anima is the feminine aspect in all men, and the animus is all the masculine aspects in women. Like the shadow, these aspects are often repressed. They often manifest as a critical voice of a parent, but not always. Now, these concepts are helpful to give the hidden aspects of oneself an outline to analyze and understand and eventually integrate. This process is not easy or expedient, and Sleep Token does a really good job of showcasing that through Vessel's relationship with sleep. Their first EP, One, begins with the song Thread the Needle. The imagery is inherently esoteric, with a casting circle, candles, moon phases, and a veiled, hidden Vessel performing some sort of ritual or summoning. And he presents an offering, an apple. This, of course, is a reference to Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve, of course, being eternally bound after Eve gives Adam the forbidden fruit to eat. Except the genders are reversed in this case to me, because I personally believe that sleep is female. I believe that sleep is actually Vessel's anima. This is the beginning of a lot of hard work and suffering and a lot of disappointment when things don't go the way that they were planning as well. Or I should say how Vessel was planning. He obviously wants to ascend. He wants to move past his mortal flesh. He wants to evolve in a sense. He wants to transform. And that's what a lot of the story of Genesis highlights. Aside from, the religious connotations of, the Abrahamic religions, it's a story about exile and transformation. Adam and Eve have moved beyond just being, animals and stuff like that, still divine, but they've moved past that because they've now understand the knowledge of gods, of good and evil. And so now as a result, they've been cast out of Eden. And that is their punishment, and they have to do a lot of hard work to try and reach that divinity again. And this is an inherently painful lesson most people learn through self-discovery, therapy, maturing, and recovery. You ascend, when you evolve, when you grow, there's always some sort of cost. There's always a sacrifice that has to be made to move past that. As the discography moves to whole official albums, the drawback of this sacred knowledge becomes much more clear. Sleep is very erratic, very, very, very chaotic. She goes from this gentle seductress and embracing mother to a domineering tyrant. Sleep and Vessel are interwoven into this very, very unhealthy and unstable relationship. And they even blend into one another in their songs. At first, especially in the 1 and 2 EPs, they seem to be very distinct voices, with one being more from Vessel's perspective, and EP2, of course, being more of Sleep's voice. I'd argue the one that really doesn't talk, that really isn't as much of Sleep speaking is Calcutta. Calcutta's the song that seems to be more from Vessel's perspective. But one moment they are accepting each other and how intertwined they are, like in the song Thread the Needle, they are bonding with each other and are so bound together and interwoven with each other, integrating with one another, that it's hard to see what, who is who and which is which. A really good example of them being very healthy in their relationship is what I like to refer as the false high on the This Place Will Become Your Tomb album. And the song is Telomeres. Even the name telomeres is a reference to them literally being bonded together like the double helix of DNA. Our very fucking blueprints. And then you move on to a song like Descending, where Vessel seems to be begging Sleep to end him already, to just end this relationship, basically wanting to die even of just... At first, this seems like an artist exploring past unhealthy relationships, but not in the way that I believe most people view it. It's Vessel's relationship with himself. To elaborate on that, there is a reason I believe Sleep is female and is Vessel's anima. What makes this idea really concrete in my mind are the stills and the art used in the Take Me Back to Eden music videos, or visualizers really. Many of the entities are feminine, or at least feminine presenting, and tie deeply into the context of the songs. My favorite example is what I like to call the Mantis Medusa from the Vor visualizer video. Side note, I forgot how cursed a word like Vor is, and especially on search engines, doesn't matter which one it is, and was reminded about how I lost my innocence back in like 2010 when I was looking for rips of the Higurashi anime when that was still popular, and I unknowingly found a Vor visual novel. It's not the most fucked up one I found of fan fiction, but it's definitely one of the most bizarre. The Mantis Medusa is clearly displaying hostile features: jagged claws and teeth, a gaping maw out of her stomach, a serpent-like lower half, and 2 Venus trap-like creatures jutting out of her shoulders. The introduction to the song is aggressive, with blast beats and Vessels screaming. Your viscera welcomes me in. And again, very clearly presenting that this entity, this feminine being, is a fucking threat, and yet he's still being drawn in. Vessel is exclaiming in pain and terror, "My life destroyed, My bones they bleed, and yet he still is somewhat willing to follow between the jaws of fate. So he can have her for once, so he can have them all to himself, so he can feel at peace, be one with themselves, with their animus, and finally self-actualize. The Mantis Medusa herself is an archetype, the all-devouring mother, primarily, at least to me. She is the mom who sabotages her children so that they are forever dependent on her. She is the Shub Niggurath, the Lovecraftian antithesis to the Earth Mother who sacrifices herself for her children. Instead of her children being looked after, they are instead carelessly and callously spawned and are either reabsorbed into her or flee into dark crevices never even acknowledged. This is sleep as a wrathful shadow and a suffocating anima. She is the voice in Vessel's head because she is Vessel. Then there's a song like Do You Wish That You Loved Me? And Are You Really Okay? Where when you listen, it tears at your heartstrings in ways that I certainly wasn't prepared for. Hell, a song like Are You Really Okay is something that, teen me had always wanted to hear from somebody. Someone who really cared about me and could see, what I was dealing with at that time. It was this song that really made me think to myself, this is actually what I should be singing to myself. And that's kind of when it really hit me. Of just kind of how genius this shit is. I don't know if it was intentional, but but just follow me here. It's gonna get real fucking wild. I think that's what Sleep Token wants to achieve, and we're gonna come back to this in a second. Continue on to some of their music, and to just try and reinforce some of my previous series. There's the song Aqua Regia, which is laden with chemical imagery. Certainly not the only song with a lot of chemical imagery, but it's the one I'm going to use in this example. Primarily because of the name itself. Aqua Regia. It is Latin and translates to royal water. This is a substance, a solution, that dissolves gold. And then there are the lyrics Gold Rush, Acid Flux, Saturate Me, I Can't Get Enough. Chemical reactions are a major theme here. There are elements of transmutating into something new, into something different. And the visualizer entity is even introduced as pouring gold, as being a fountain of gold. And I believe that this embodies Jung's idea on alchemy and psychology. Despite the chokehold that Vessel's shadow aspects and negative anima try to sabotage themselves with, he still goes through the painful journey of self-analysis and acceptance, taking what he built and turning them to gold, like an alchemist. He endures the harsh black gaze of the shadow and accepts her with open arms. He states he's up like the moon and out like the hounds. And this is a reference to the 18th card in the Major Arcana, the Moon. And of course I know about, Major Arcana and tarot cards because I'm a woman in her something 20s, so yeah, of course I know about this crap. The card's imagery includes a full moon, 2 hounds barking at it, and some sort of crustacean creature coming out from the waters towards the front of the card, in traditional Rider-Waite tarot. And the card's meaning, by itself, is about the subconscious, fears, illusions, and things that are hidden or buried. Vessel is integrating sleep, that some of the pain and the struggles that he's been dealing with are illusory and that he's his own worst enemy. And I believe that's showcased very well in the song Rain. Especially because they seem to be the most in sync in this song as well. Like actually interweaving very beautifully, like they're actually finally teaming up together and really being able to strike a fine balance. They are singing in harmony and complementing one another with melodic lyrics and piercing shrieks, accepting his raw and inherent divinity as well as his bestial nature. Accepting that he has the mouth of the wolf and the eyes of a lamb, Major part of this song, because especially this song is really heavily laden with a lot of like esoteric imagery, is the lyric, "I'm coiled up like a venomous serpent." And trust me, this connects later to the second to last song. It conjures up the alchemical aspect of snakes. Despite their negative perception, especially in Abrahamic religions, snakes are symbols of transformation. They shed their old skin to make literal room for a healthy new skin. Snakes that cannot shed their old layers suffer the consequences of not being able to shed properly and can even die. Vessel is declaring that he will accept the change and growth no matter how painful it is. He's willing to integrate the light and dark aspects. Next is the title song, "Take Me Back to Eden." This is a callback to Thread the Needle. "Take Me Back to Eden" is a callback to Thread the Needle. Vessel eating the fruit of knowledge and wishing to move from that knowledge and move back to the state of ignorant bliss. He now understands the ramifications and the painful sacrifices he's had to make, and he's declaring that he wants to go back to that defined state. I'd argue that it is the collective unconscious that he's basically begging for again. That sort of bliss, that sort of complete unity. He wants to go back to a point where he does not know where he would not know the painful experiences he would experience due to trying to ascend, his disconnect from his own nature, or at least his perception of it. During the first bridge, for lack of a better term, Vessel seems to be undergoing a painful transformation, or even some sort of psychosis. And I choose that word very specifically because Carl Jung even allowed himself to fall into psychosis. He literally wrote a book about it. Vessel also remarks that he doesn't know what's got his teeth in him, but he will bite back in anger. But what he's dueling with is sleep. He's fighting himself. The coiled up serpent is biting himself and devouring himself. Is integrating. Sleep and her vessel are uniting, the divine and the material, in a constant state of flux, destroying and recreating themselves for eternity. Sleep and vessel basically become the Ouroboros, another alchemical symbol when it comes to transformation and energy not being destroyed or created, but just always existing and always changing. And then the finality to the album, and what I believe could be the finality to Sleep Token as a band, is Euclid, which begins, and Vessel is describing himself as experiencing black tar on the inside burning, like the old version of himself is being destroyed to allow growth of the new self. And because everything is symbolic with Sleep Token, even the name Euclid fits very well. Not just because, Euclid was a old geometry mathematician, and of course the references to symmetry and everything, but also that a lesser known meaning to the word and not the name Euclid is a copy of the same. Vessel references sleep as his symmetry, a parallel he would lay his life on, reiterating that sleep and vessel are one being, irreversibly changed, yet still the same being, as if reintegrating from when we are born, we are integrated, and we have all these aspects to ourselves, and through the process of, growing up and becoming an adult, we have disintegrated from our darker aspects and our shadow aspects and the collective unconscious, and we want to go through a process to try and reintegrate all those aspects to self-actualize. The line, "I must be someone new," delivers the finality of Vessel's transmutation. Him and Sleep are one and the same once more. He has reclaimed his willpower and sense of self. "If your wings won't find your heaven, I will bring it down like an ancient bygone." Instead of looking for heaven or chasing happiness, Vessel decides to create his own. He is the magician and the alchemist. And to make everyone start crying, the song concludes with the lyrics from "The Night Does Not Belong to God." "The whites of your eyes turn black in the low light, and turning divine, we tangle endlessly. Like lovers entwined, I know for the last time, you will not be mine, so give me the night." It's befitting for many reasons that Sundowning was the first official full-length album Sleep Token released, and opened with "The Night Does Not Belong to God." The night no longer belongs to sleep. Vessel is no longer plagued by what he suppresses in his waking world. His subconscious is no longer tormenting him. He is fully integrated, and he's able to see his subconscious. He's able to take back his control of his life, and he's able to self-actualize and operate in the world in a much more healthy way and feel like he has much more control over his life. This recontextualizes Sleep and Vessel's relationship from the beginning with this archetype. To break it down more, because I'm a nitpicky girl, even just some of the words that they choose, like lovers entwined. We tangle endlessly like lovers entwined. Again, the imagery of sleep and a vessel constantly weaving within one another, trying to integrate, threading the needle between each other so that way they're eternally bound. Even the tarot just keeps coming up because these archetypes are they've lasted for a long time for a reason, whether we like it or not. These archetypes stick in our brains. Now, to go back to the tarot, the Lovers is the 6th card in the Major Arcana and is associated with the constellation Gemini, the twins Castor and Pollux. I'm going to stop there, otherwise I'm going to go off on a freaking tangent about Castor and Pollux, because that's a whole other can of worms. If I did dive into all of their songs like this, I'd be here for hours. So, anyways, going back to it. The Lovers, aside from its astrological meaning, is not primarily about finding true love. It can be that, but more often than not, that's not what it's about. In fact, most tarot readers view it as a card of balance with the self. The unity of one's intrinsic masculine and feminine traits. Like the Major Arcana card, Sleep Token's music on the surface seems to be about loving another person, but is actually rooted in one's relationship with themselves. A perfect union and harmony with oneself, learning to understand oneself and what you value in life. And that's what self-actualization is all about, finding out who you truly are, what you value, and how to live the best and most, productive and happy life you can as a person, despite your limitations. Euclid is about a completed evolution and the end to a beautiful and painful journey. The album art shows a creature emerging from the moon like an egg. Something emerging from the subconscious, the feminine giving birth to a new life. The shadow, the animus, being the entity that you need to confront and integrate with to be able to create life. And the entity for the song Euclid as a whole is shows a masked figure with a sacrificial blade and the head of Vessel. The vessel as we know has died and has become someone new, and that this new entity has killed him. To me, this feels like a farewell. Vessel is gone and moving on to new things, and I'm okay with that. This band has brought so much inspiration and catharsis to people. They took their insecurities, pain, and transformed them into something precious and beautiful. It's fucking alchemy. It really is. And it still goes deeper than that. That's the thing that drives me nuts about this. Their music is powerful, yet vague and mysterious, and all these images and tomes and the lore, it becomes... I gotta stop, okay. It becomes you, and you dig deeper. It forces you to gaze into the darkness, and you don't even realize you've been gazing into the void until you feel it glaring back at you. Sleep Token's music operates under a similar principle as Rorschach images, except they're auditory. The more you search for symbols and meaning, the more you discover what matters to you and what these symbols mean to you specifically. In my personal experience, I've been able to have epiphanies when I'm really feeling certain songs, both intentionally and unintentionally. I didn't even start off using this as a process to try to end up finding other aspects of myself until one day it would just hit me out of nowhere. For example, The Love You Want. Probably, I'd argue one of their most well-known songs. So, the lyrics, "Too many swallow keys will make you bleed internally someday." To me, for me, in a context of myself and my own psyche, holding on to your ideas and hoarding and coveting them from the rest of the world does nothing but hurt you and breed resentment and self-loathing. Maybe you believe that in the end you'll be better off someday. I believe I'll be better off because I'd rather quietly rot away and just stop existing than ever risk failing again. And to fail at something that is so valuable and personal to me that I faced physical punishments to continue to express and engage in, and to have the public forum tell me directly or indirectly that my art, the essence of who I fucking am, is inferior. I'd rather die quietly and forgotten than be told I am inferior or subpar. I went through years of therapy before being able to really scratch at the surface of crap like that. And this song became an impromptu shadow work. What the actual fuck? I don't know if this was intentional or not on their part, but god damn it, it sure as shit did the job! To tie back to the lore and cult aspect of Sleep Token, each song is an offering to the entity Sleep, which speaks through her vessel. As they've concluded their project, Vessel probably felt like he didn't have anything more to give, so he gave all of himself. The persona of Vessel, his scapegoat, to Sleep, so he can move on to the next project as someone new. He most likely changed pretty significantly since the one EP as well. His own music has changed him. The group has definitely grown and probably didn't want to have the project get ripped out, like sometimes happens with a lot of great bands that have been going on for years. And so they decided they wanted to go out with a bang. Frankly, I'm glad I got to experience the music when I did. I found Sleep Token when Will Ramos covered their song Hypnosis. And I dove headfirst into that rabbit hole. It changed the way I saw music and how I could use music as a tool. Now, explain that, a little background on me. I am the type of person that uses music to escape from everything. It's why I like atmospheric music so much. I can get lost in it very, very easily. So Sleep Token Soundscape is perfect for someone like me, especially with a song like Thread the Needle. It has a very dissociative aspect to it, and it's familiar to me because I dissociate a lot. Not as much as I used to, but that was a common coping mechanism that I used to kind of deal with whatever I was dealing with at the time. And even after I get pretty familiar with the songs and stuff like that, and I'm able to predict the kind of the formula, even as, albums go by and stuff like that. Another layer to the music that still allows me to escape and still disassociate from myself and escape myself for a little bit is to be able to kind of try and dissect the artists, the musicians, the writers' mentality and their own psyche through their work. It's fun for someone like me who likes art and psychology. I'm still escaping my own issues, though, and that's the problem. I'm still dissociating. I'm still escaping. I'm still hiding from reality. But these little echoes of an artist's beliefs and experiences ring through their work and get amplified with larger portfolios and repertoire. And again, I love that stuff. It's hard to do that with Sleep Token's work, or at least I found it difficult to do that with Sleep Token's work. Their themes are so obscure and abstract that it's hard to pin down sometimes. As a result, I'm stuck with these symbols and end up ascribing my own meaning to them, intentionally or not. And I think that's the point. Initially, this was going to be a very different video. One where I would break down many more of their songs and interpret them line by line. Then I began to slowly lose my mind and become overwhelmed by that, so I settled with something a little bit more concise, at least for me. There are so many songs that I wanted to dive into, but it just wasn't feasible at the time, especially because I didn't want this, video to be like 3 hours long or something like that. So by any means, if you want to expand on this or even just throw in your own opinions, please go ahead and throw it in the comments. I have a discussion with this sort of stuff. And I think that's kind of the point of this. It seems as though the band wants us to be able to, self-analyze and self-discover and engage in this sort of stuff. Otherwise, there wouldn't be all these layers to this shit. And again, that's the fun part of it. It's art you can really interact with. And in a way that I haven't really been seen done in quite a way, because it's really hard to be able to do that without being too gimmicky or something really being able to lose steam pretty fast. Anyways, so go ahead and have fun in the comments, try to play nice, and thank you for your time.